I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we are talking to a man who wears multiple hats, and he wears them all very, very well. His name is Dr. Curtis Graham. He is a physician, a business marketing expert, and a published author as well. He's the man behind an important book called The Wounded Physicians Project. And it is a book that is a must read for doctors, others in the medical community, and all of us touched by medicine, which is virtually all of us. Dr. Graham, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
And thank you, sir, Logan. Pleasure to be here.
My pleasure. I love the title. We think of the Wounded Warrior Project, of course, when we see this, but this is a different type of war that we're waging nowadays, and it involves doctors who are caught in the crosshairs and the crossfire in many cases. Tell me, why is the American physician wounded in your view, Doc?
Well, I think that I start with a couple questions. One that kind of introduces the topic. Would you send a combat soldier into battle with his rifle and not give him any ammunition? Or would you send a graduating physician from medical school into a private medical practice and they have absolutely no business education at all? That's the issue.
Yep, those are the rhetorical questions, and the answer, of course, is of course not. You're not going to send a soldier into battle without a gun, and you're not going to set up a doctor for failure by not teaching him about the business of being a doctor. And it gets to be a more complicated business every day with all of the multiple layers of government overreach, government supervision, and all of the insurance companies that they have to deal with as well. Now, you're well versed in this topic because you've practiced medicine for decades, and you've also helped other doctors and doctors' practices bridge this gap to become successful. What is needed for a doctor's office or a practice of physicians to be successful in the year 2022?
Well, I think up till now, the whole problem in the medical profession has been the result of having no business education for doctors. Because if you provide that to them or you support them in obtaining that, then they are able to earn enough money to stay in practice and to practice longer and more efficiently and with a greater quality of medicine for their patients. For example, if you took all the doctors who have lost their medical practices in the last 5 years just for financial reasons, they couldn't afford to stay in medical practice, what happens to them? Because they have no tools known in finances by every single successful business in the world today, any owner of those, understand how you stay in business and how you improve it, and how you improve the quality of what you're adding to the business. And so doctors are not able to do that when they don't have the income. And the income, as you know, of doctors all starts with seeing patients in private practice or in employment practice, either way. But the patients need to understand that because of those limitations, it is actually giving the doctors a problem that hasn't been handled or fixed in the last 7 decades in the medical profession. And if you give that doctor the ability to run his business, and medical practice is a legal business, if you give him the opportunity of having all those tools by a business education, then they will be able to improve the quality of their medical care they give to patients, and they will be able to stay on the cutting edge of their profession, which now they're not able to, because you take a bunch of those, a good number, percentage of private practice physicians, and they're not earning enough money to spend to get the skills they need to improve their practices or to offer their patients better surgery and better medical care.
And there's such a misconception out there on the part of the public, though. They feel that doctors are highly compensated and that they're perhaps overcompensated. There seems to be some kind of resentment of success, it seems. I mean, to become a physician, you're studying until you're a minimum of 30 years of age, probably 32, 33, 35 years of age.
Yes.
And some, if you're going to be an MD, PhD, perhaps till you're nearly 40 years of age with fellowships and so forth. So it is a license that is earned the hard way. You graduate with a lot of student debt in many cases, and you're not getting the compensation that you need. And so the physician is set up for failure in many cases. And that seems to be, the thrust of your book, that the medical profession needs to address this. It needs to be addressed where they're learning, and that's in medical school, correct?
Well, in medical school, because my research that I've done so far has shown that doctors, after they graduate from medical school or the residency training specialty programs, that they will not stop medical practice to go back to get the business education they need. They just won't do it unless they have a mate who will afford everything and handle it with their money income. But basically, most doctors won't do that. So the place to, I feel, that they would best use the business education and learn from it would be while they're at the peak of their educational arrogance and tolerance and passion. And that's in medical school. I saw it in my class many years ago, and it's still there. That hasn't disappeared. And you begin to worry about that more and more all the time. And because I lost my own medical practice, that's why I wrote the book. I got angry about what I found out. And that's another whole segment that is covered in my book.
Absolutely, absolutely. It seems the medical field has changed drastically from when every doctor seemed to be in private practice with maybe one or two other doctors, and to now these big groups. And as we get into these big groups of doctors, medicine becomes anonymous. You have a doctor who's briefly looking at their chart, probably meeting you for the first time, spending half of the visit tapping into the computer, all of the electronic notes that they now have to take for the medical file records. How do we fix this, Doc? It seems like it's a very broken system.
It's very broken, has been for about a century. No one in the medical field, administrators, scholars, have done anything about that whatsoever. Instead, they come up with lame excuses, in my opinion, as to why they can't do it. Can't add a business education to the medical school curriculum. I've written to all the people that are associated with the responsibility for doing that. They don't even answer me back. They won't answer. I sent my own medical school a copy of my book, and I thought, well, they'll send me a little note back saying, gee, thanks for your ideas anyway, and we're not going to do it, but at least they do respond. Not at all.
It seems like there's such a disconnect between academia and real life.
Yeah, I think there's a deep state present in the medical profession that's preventing this from happening, if you want to call it that.
Right. So an entrenched group that wants things as they are now and have vested interests in the way things are proceeding now and don't want to see more of a democratization, if you will, of medicine.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I'm hoping that the profession will wise up. They'll see a dramatic improvement in healthcare when you see the fact that senior medical pre-med students are in college, and you see the fact that none of them are applying to medical school anymore. Why? Well, now medical schools are filling up their classes with female doctors, which is fine. But the other half of the class is for medical students. Where are American males? What are they doing? That they packed the classes when I was in medical school. Where has that gone to? Well, I think they're getting smart enough to see what happens to their money and reputation issues in medical care that's happening now. And one of the big problems with employment of doctors has been that they have no choice over how they can practice medicine. And in my book, I describe several good examples of what happened to me. And they dictated how I practiced medicine. And mentally, I could not tolerate that. I had to leave the people I was working with, although they were good doctors, but they were being dictated to, and they got along with it fine. And apparently, a large number of doctors are getting along with it fine today. But for me, I found my ability to reach my utmost, ultimate ability in medicine depended entirely on how much money I made so that I could go and get that and serve my patients better. And I can see that it could happen throughout not only our country, but physicians all over the world are being neglected along this line. Now, if they're all running a business, then why don't they want a business education? You know where new doctors get their business started? You know what they do? They go down the road and they talk to the local doctors, say, what do you use for your financial program? How do you set it up? How do you set up your office? And so they go to several doctors locally, and finally they all answer their questions. He says, okay, I'll try that, I'll try that, I'll try that. That's what happens to private practice. And so they pick up all the mistakes that those other doctors have made because they didn't have a business education. So they start and they make it work and they keep fixing it for 30, 40 years. They never get to the top because they never get the tools that they need, marketing and knowing how to manage a business properly. And I was so upset about that when I finally found out that 174 credited medical schools in the United States were never offered a business education to doctors. Nowadays, there are a few taking a few shots at it. And one in particular problem that I see happening is they're thinking about a business administration kind of education. And an MBA is not qualified enough for a doctor who practices medicine and wants to get ahead. They have to have a real academic business education. And that's not hard to learn. Those things are not hard to learn. I spent 20 years now in marketing and business, and I'll tell you that it's overrated in what you have to learn. And when doctors can learn the tools that they need to use in medical practice, they would be unbelievably happy with what they are doing and how it's making things roll. It's just incredible what they could do.
And then a burden would be lifted from them. Not having that financial pressure, they'd be able to get back to the practice of medicine unencumbered, I believe.
Yeah, it's like, what's the cause of burnout? What's your idea of the cause of burnout?
Well, stress, lack of money, overwork. Those would be the three factors that come to mind.
How do doctors make money? Doctors make money by seeing patients every day. They don't make it any other way unless they're investing in something, but they make it on their patients. So when they don't do well in practice and they're not making much money, what do they have to do? They have to see 20 more patients a day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So pretty soon they're seeing 40 more patients a day, spend less time with the patient. They never instruct them much on anything. They don't have time to do that.
Right.
And so patients are feeling neglected. He didn't answer my question. He only answered one question. The other 20 I had, they wouldn't even pay attention to.
Right. Right.
So that is part of the aggravation that I've had. And I just find that a problem that can be totally solved by just getting to the American Association of Medical Colleges and have their committees that handle the programs associated with the curriculums of each medical school and recommend things for medical schools to do. that group is the place to start. But they won't answer my letters. They won't answer my comments. Nothing. They don't want to know. So
Well, the good news is the book is out there. It is a
Yes.
prescription for healing this wounded industry. It is called the Wounded Physician Project. It is written by Dr. Curtis Graham. As I mentioned, he is an author. He is also a business marketing expert. And of course, he is a physician. The book is available on Amazon. You can download it for Kindle. You can purchase the book itself. It is a recommended read for medical school students, for doctors, for other medical professionals, for academics as well. Dr. Graham, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
I thank you very much. You have a wonderful day.
I appreciate it. And I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.